Hello there. Should we give Nicola Sturgeon her wish and offer the Scots one last referendum vote? Firstly, as ever, please kick that YouTube algorithm up the jacksie by giving this video a big fat like. And I'm always uploading new content, so please do check my YouTube channel daily. Yes, that's right. I'm asking the question of whether or not Boris Johnson should give the SNP a fresh independence vote once this current situation blows over. Let's face it, how many people in Scotland would vote for independence after the United Kingdom has pulled together in this way in full solidarity under arguably the most popular Prime Minister since Winston Churchill? And that's despite many rather distasteful comments emanating from the shallower end of the gene pool trying to make political capital out of our PM's recent diagnosis. And I, for one, am not surprised at those nasty comments, because as we have seen time and time again, those that self-identify as pro-EU or as hard left will plumb any murky and depraved depth in pursuit of their aims. And perversely for them, all this has done is bolster the Prime Minister's popularity, because people with a modicum of decency and intelligence have banded together to support Boris in this hour of need for the whole nation. Do not think for 1 minute that the Scottish people are oblivious to the fact that if Scotland had voted to leave the UK, it would not only be fighting to make its own way in the world, almost certainly outside of the EU, but it would also be fighting the global situation we now find ourselves embroiled in, but without UK funds to support it. Not only that, an independent Scotland would right now be nearing bankruptcy due to oil prices being dragged down because of the Russia-Saudi oil price war. Brent crude had peaked at $75.60 a barrel about 11 months ago, and has sunk down to just $25 a barrel or so today, a fall of 67%. And remember, even at $75.60 a barrel, Scotland's future would not be a rosy one. That's IMF bailout form filling in territory. And that's also without considering the shared cost of Rishi Sunak's massive UK bailout scheme. No, Scottish independence is, I think, not something the ordinary Scottish voter in the street will be choosing for some considerable time to come. Oh, and the same applies to Wales and Northern Ireland too, so don't expect any resurgence from Plaid Cymru anytime soon either. And that may be why the Scottish Government recently decided to put their independence campaign on hold for the rest of 2020. Because they recognise that now would be a very bad time to be seen pushing ahead with it. But as far as I can see, when looking at the Scots Nats, if they thought they could use this current crisis for their own ends, they would, whatever the cost. Most Scots people would, I think, know that an independent Scotland would have been utterly decimated by recent events and would have been forced to plead with Westminster for financial, medical and other infrastructural support. After all, judging from the actions of some EU 27 member states effectively trying to hoard or divert medical supplies, you do have to wonder how supportive Eurocrats would have been to Scotland's plight. And look at what Brussels has done to both Italy and Greece as a prime example. Brussels has been much more intent on getting EU membership talks going with Albania and North Macedonia than bothering to offer even a crumb of comfort to two of its own member states experiencing difficulties. And an independent Scotland, with its Sturgeon total open door policy, would almost certainly have become the target for those wishing to eventually get to London by any means possible, if you get my drift. Maybe the one thing that we can take from all of this is that our union of Scotland, England, Wales and Northern Ireland is to be greatly valued and not thrown away so readily. I can tell you now, many SNP voters gazing across at Europe will be having second thoughts about supporting Scottish independence in light of the utter contempt shown towards Italy by the EU, which has even placed fines on the embattled nation for its subsidies. Where was the hand of friendship and support for Italy? Where is the great EU and its noble humanitarian posturing as the people of Italy begged for help? Pathetic. When the time came for the EU to step up to the mark, it was found wanting and showed its true face to the peoples of Europe. Its commission wanted to keep the internal borders open, but seemed to have no intention of doing much else. And the whole system was initially paralysed due to EU 27 politicians being so used to being instructed from Brussels on what T to cross and what I to dot next. It wasn't until realisation dawned that they were effectively on their own that they got out of the starting gates. And the bloc's so-called unity was defenestrated as soon as EU 27 national governments realised that all the EU had to offer was open borders. But member states adapted fast as they realised the only way forward was to take control themselves, and therein lies the lesson for Ms Sturgeon. Your dream of independence relies totally on the EU. That is, your independence relies totally on becoming the new 28th member state as soon as you could. The EU would be your crutch, without which you could go nowhere. But the people of Scotland can now see that the EU is not to be trusted with your country's well-being. You had your chance for independence back in 2014 and blew it, and your recent demands for a second Scottish referendum due to Brexit were opportunistic at best. But when placed in the context of recent events, I would say you have even lost that excuse. And as an aside, I do wish that Nicola Sturgeon would stop her press conferences, where, in her quest to still look relevant, she simply parrots UK government policy and, as far as I'm concerned, tries to pass it off as her and her Scottish government's initiatives. They're not. They emanate from Westminster. So let's forget the posturing and get unambiguously behind one message and one messenger to get through this thing. After all, nothing of note is coming from anywhere else, is it? And I would argue that the one nation state outside the UK that we should be working most closely with is the Republic of Ireland. Anyway, it is for all of these reasons that I think there is a case for a second Scottish independence referendum once the dust has settled from the current global situation, because it would drive the final nail into the coffin of Scottish independence. A dream, or more likely nightmare-shattering nail, driven in by a hammer wielded by the very people that are intent on splitting the UK asunder, because the people of Scotland are far from stupid. Yes, I agree the union needs restructuring, but I think you'll find that inside number 10 sits a Prime Minister who recognises that more than most, and probably more than any previous Prime Minister or government. Let's strive to make the United Kingdom work for all people, while celebrating the cultural distinction between its four nations. Let's aim for more democratic accountability, and especially at times like this, let's band together as four nations united by a common heritage and fight for our communities, friends and families, and all that live in this United Kingdom. And this is the time to do it. Anyway, if you want to hear more from me, please don't forget to subscribe and also press that little bell, or you won't get any notifications. And if you want to see more of me, buy a mug with my mug on it. So what do you think about a second Scottish independence referendum? Please share and comment, and thank you for watching. Please do like and share this video. and also subscribe to my channel. And when subscribing, please do remember to press on the little bell next to the subscribe button. That way you'll get an alert every single time I put up a new video. And thank you very much for watching.